designers use Photoshop to alter images? So Photoshop is used to create designs and edit photos, and you can also create things like logos, business cards, flyers, postcards. You can also create things for social media like Instagram, and you can also work on creating other cartoons and different types of designs. We use Photoshop to basically create a brand for somebody, and the list goes on and on. Those are just some of the examples. In order to use Photoshop, we have to first understand how Photoshop works. Basically, Photoshop takes whatever we're importing, such as a photo, and creates a design, and we tell Photoshop what we want to do. So one of the things we need to know before we can start designing is how is the quality of our work created? How do we decide how clear an image is or what the resolution is of our image? Okay, so in order to do this, we have to understand how do we determine the quality of an image. Quality of an image is based on how much resolution an image has. Resolution is the measurement of quality for a photo. It's how clear or sharp an image is. Low resolution means the image is low quality, it's blurry, it's pixelated, it's not clear, clean, and crisp. Whereas high resolution, the image would be nice and clear. It won't have any kind of pixels, any kind of blurriness. In case you don't know what a pixel is, I'm going to pull up an image of a pixel. Okay, so if you zoom very close to an image, you'll start seeing square boxes of color, and that is what makes up the color in an image. Okay, so this is an example. Okay, this would be a low quality image. Okay, another example, I'm going to pull up a picture I have on my computer. Okay, this is an example. I'm going to zoom in very closely and you start seeing these pixels. Okay, now had it been a high quality image, you wouldn't see these jagged edges or these little boxes. The closer I get, the easier you can see the pixels. Now, does that mean a high quality image does not have pixels? No, every image you work on will have pixels. It just, depending on how close you have to get, basically will also help you to decide if the image is high or low quality. As close as I am, it should still be clean, clear, and crisp. But you can always zoom in very, very close to see pixels. Pixels are basically all these little boxes. When I zoom out, as I zoom out farther and farther away, you start seeing the image. So pixels are in all images. But if we see pixels, if it looks blurry, like this looks blurry, then it means that the image is low quality or low resolution. In order to open Photoshop, you should see at the bottom of your screen in your dock the Photoshop icon. But if it is not there, you can go to the Finder. Okay, you can go to Applications and you should see all the Adobe programs at the top. Okay, I do have an updated version called Adobe Photoshop Beta, but there is also the regular Photoshop version as well. And basically you would go into the folder and then double click on the program and it will open. How do we create a new document? You go to File, New, or Command N, and then you basically put in all your information. If you want to change the file name, you put it here with height, resolution, and then color mode. Okay, and then you press create, and you create the file. Okay, and then you can continue working. Okay, the next question is, how do we place an image? So there's two ways to place an image. One way is you go to File, Place Embedded or Place Linked. I will explain this in more detail in a future lesson, but basically the file Place Embedded means it's going to be a heavier file, more space is needed, whereas File Place Linked means it's going to connect it to your outside file. This file in Photoshop will be smaller than the embedded version. but the linked means you have to keep the original file where it is. Okay, so we'll explain that a little bit. I'll explain that more in detail in the future. But basically, another way to do this, and I'm just minimizing some things in the background, is if you have any kind of pictures. Let me find a picture. Okay, I'm going to use this picture. Okay, it is on my desktop, but I can't see it, so I'm just going to use my finder to find it. So I'm going to take the picture, I'm going to click on it without letting go, and I'm dropping it. Okay, then you'll see what's called our transformation box, which will be one of our upcoming videos talking about transformations. And then you just press this check mark or your return key on your keyboard. Okay, and then you have your image in there. Again, we'll be talking about transformations in case you want to scale an image bigger or smaller. I will go over that. And then lastly, we have two other things we want to save. So when you go to file save or file save as, those are two different commands. Okay, that's a big thing that you want to understand because these are options in all programs. So file save is just going to save the file, the original file name, the original file. It's overriding all of the things you've already done. Whereas file save as is making a copy. That is the difference between save and save as. Save is a copy, and then you also have this other option for save a copy. Okay, I usually stick to save or save as, but you can also use the save a copy option. Okay, basically, if you wanted to make a different form, like a regular format in Photoshop is going to be PSD, whereas we have the option for when we go to save as, we have all of these different options. Okay, if you do not see this list when you go to save as, then you'll let me know and I can adjust your settings, because sometimes this doesn't show all these options, but these are all different formats depending on what you're doing. Okay, we will usually either be using Photoshop, in some very rare cases large document format, JPEG, PDF, or PNG. Okay, Photoshop file, this means Photoshop file and large document file. These two mean you can go back and edit these files more in Photoshop. Okay, JPEG is a picture file. PDF is a digital format file, kind of like a JPEG, but it's high quality, whereas JPEGs support lower quality as well as high quality. These are flattened files, whereas PDFs can be multiple pages instead of just the one page in a JPEG. A PNG file is a transparent file. Basically, if you're creating a logo and you want no background, you want it to be see-through, then it would be a PNG. We will discuss this in the future as we move on and we're doing different projects. You'll be able to experiment with all these files. A JPEG, again, is going to be kind of like a picture file. When you go to save as, it doesn't matter. You always need to make sure the file name is corrected as well as the where. Okay, because a lot of the time I'm asked, where's my file? I saved my file. Where's my file? I don't know where my file is. Miss. And then my response is, I don't know, because I wasn't the one that saved it. It's important that you are paying attention to where you save it. Of course, if I'm helping you and I watch where you saved it, I'm going to do my best to help you, locate it, but I don't always sit and save it with you. You're going to be saving your files every day. So it's important that you keep an eye on where you're saving your files. Okay. We will be creating our own folders in your accounts where you can save them. Most of the time, if you don't pay attention to where you're saving them, it's going to be in the downloads folder or in the desktop folder. Okay, or it may even be in our class folder that you guys will be downloading in the beginning of the semester. Okay, now if in the event that you cannot find, you looked on your desktop, you look on your downloads, you cannot find your file no matter what, you can go to the finder, which is at the bottom of the screen. Okay, you'll see it here. My dock is not showing, but it's the smiley face icon, and basically when you click on that, it brings you to this screen and you have an option for recents. Okay, and this will show you all the files you've worked on previously. Okay, now if you didn't save the file, it won't be here. So you will, unfortunately, if you can't find the file, have to redo it. Another option is if you go to, I'm going to press cancel. If you go to file, which is at the top of the screen here, you can go to open recents and it will show you all of your recent files as well. Okay, now the other thing I want to mention is sometimes we forget to log in or log out of an account. If we're in the wrong period, you're not going to have your work. Okay, so you have to make sure you're logging. If you're in a period 2 student, you have to log into period 2. Okay, if you're logged into period 4 but you're supposed to be in your period 2 class, you're not going to find your work. Okay, so it's important that you're making sure you're logged into the correct account. Okay, if you are not, you should let me know so I can make sure we adjust our class points based on who's logged in, who's logged out, which I will talk more about further in class. Okay, so that's another way why you might not be able to find your work, is if you're in the wrong account. When you go to the Apple, it should say log out of, and if your period is not there, then that means you're in somebody else's account, and that can be causing you to not find your work. Okay, the other issue is that if you're signed in, okay, this is your Photoshop, then you will be able to also see your work that you've done and save to the cloud. If you're in somebody else's Photoshop, you might see their work, or you might not be able to see what you've saved. So you have to make sure you're in the same account, that you always log in on the same computer. Those are 2 things that can also affect your saving your accounts. Okay, now going back here, where's our file? Those were the questions that are going to be on this worksheet. I am going to remove the answers that are there so you guys can take notes. Of course, when you're writing these notes, make sure you're writing your own words. Don't use the words that I'm giving you, because those might not make sense to you. Write your notes the way you will remember and you will understand. Of course, don't write slang or abbreviations, because you might forget what that means. Answer these questions to the best of your ability in your own words, in complete sentences.